Hello, you guys. Happy, what's today? Sunday. Happy Sunday. I just want to get on here and give you today's reminder and just give you a testimony of something that God has revealed to me. So this morning I got up and my room and my son's room was a complete mess, right? So backstory, my son took my baby powder and poured it all over my floor. Not only did he take my baby powder and pour it over my floor, but he took my box of dryer sheets and tore them up and had a field day in his room, right? So I wake up and I'm like highly upset because I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do that? What? Like, what? You know better. And so as I was getting ready to like just discipline my son, the Lord told me, just breathe. Like, breathe and take a minute. But he told me to just breathe and relax. And he said, isn't this a parent? This is what a parent does. A parent disciplines their child. A parent teaches their child. And even though a parent does their job right sometimes, the child still does what goes against the parent's word, right? And so what this meant for me was, I had been holding on to just a lot of things that God has really just told me to distance myself from or just fully release from it. But because I still had hope in those areas, because I still was putting my trust in that God would change his mind. God was like, no, I'm not changing my mind. This is it. Like, you need to do what I tell you to do. Set boundaries according to the way I tell you to set them. And when you go outside of the way I set boundaries, you go against my word. And if you're going against my word, you're being disobedient, because to know what to do and to not do it is a sin. And so this morning, I woke up and was like, Lord. And in so many ways, I was reminded of how sometimes God disciplines us. And even though we know what to do, and sometimes we lead away from it, or sometimes we do things and we know that we're going to be left scarred or left broken or left hurt from situations that we just wanted to feel loved in, or situations where we just wanted to see the best in other people, even when they didn't see the best in us. And so because we are human, we're so, our hearts are so wired to just be loving in some ways to another. And you have hope in people, but sometimes that hope is hope deferred, because the things that you hope are going to happen are never going to come to pass. And that's the reason why God has called you from those places, from those people, from those environments. And it's in our best interest to just stay focused on the word that God spoke. So if God is telling you to release and fully let go, don't go back grabbing and holding on and opening doors that he has told you to either close or just temporarily. And when I got this analogy, I was just like, well, Lord, like, you're right. Like, this is what a parent does. A parent disciplines. And sometimes it's hard, because sometimes it's like you get a pop on the hand, and sometimes you get, a bill, and sometimes you get, whatever. But either way, discipline is discipline. And God's discipline is not to hurt us. It's to show that he loves us and he cares for us. And if he's calling you from something, or if he's calling you to do something, you have to trust that his word and his way as our Father is more important than the hope that you still have in dead situations. It's better than what we can imagine. So even when we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, or even when we want to give things a second chance in places or things that God has called us from, we have to go back to our first love and say, you know what, God, I'm just going to do what you told me to do across the board. I don't want to get popped on the hand no more. I don't want to get a whipping no more. I don't want you to have to come in and clean my mess up, because that's what I had to do. My son made a mess, and I was left to clean it up. And not only did he create havoc in one room, but it was in two rooms, because he messed up, put powder all over the floor in my room, and then his room was like a snowball effect because he had dry sheets all over his room. And so in the midst of that, God was just reminding me that sometimes when we're curious, because he was curious about like, oh, what is this? And like, oh, it sprinkles out. Let me sprinkle it all over the floor. And then he saw the dryer sheets, and it's like, well, what's this? Oh, these some sheets I can just play with? Like, oh, okay, they smell good? And so that's us in so many ways. We're curious about things that we are not to be curious about, or we have the answers, but because the answers don't really align up, or we don't want to give the people the satisfaction to say, oh, well, this person was judging me, or this person didn't love me correctly. So we go back to the thing that God called us from, when in reality he said no. But in the midst of us being curious, God is left to clean up our mess. And in the midst of that, he's cleaning up our mess, and we're potentially temporarily hurt because we've gotten popped or we've been scarred by the things that we were curious about. And so the moral of the story is, listen, not only be a hearer and not only be a doer of the word, but be a hearer of his word. Don't only be a hearer and not a doer. Do both. Whatever God has told you to do it, and do it wholeheartedly. Don't go back and question, like, well, God, what did you really say? That I couldn't indulge in this friendship anymore? Did you really say that I could, like, not go back to this place? Did you really say? And then it's that moment in curiosity that God shows up and he pops you on your hand and he said, yes, I really did say it. Don't do it again. You know, because warning comes before destruction. And a lot of times when you sit around and you think about, well, did this person know? They knew. God gives warning. He speaks to his children, and as sheep, and as his child, we are to him. So as his kids, it's our responsibility to know what God is saying. And if we're not sure about it, to seek him out. Don't go being curious about something God has already given you the answer to, because I would hate to find out that you got popped in the midst of being curious in something that God already gave you the answer to. Don't go back pulling people in that were supposed to be left behind. Don't go back to those places that God pulled you out of. Don't go running back to those mindsets. It's not just people, it's perspective, it's environments, it's places. Whatever God has pulled you from and he's told you, listen, I'm pulling you out of this thing because it's the better you. Do not go running back to those things out of curiosity, thinking about, well, what am I missing? Because sometimes in our reality, the curious part comes into like, well, what am I really missing from it? Let me just go back and see. Like, I just want to look. I just want to see. No, don't look. Don't see. Because I don't want you to get popped. Okay? And that was just what God gave me, because in this morning, I was just like, what in the world? As parents, we have to clean up behind our kids. But yeah, so as God is our Father, it is his responsibility and his job to correct us when we are wrong. Sometimes it's a tap on the shoulder, it's a pop on the hand, and sometimes it's a big old right on the wall. Like, listen, you need to come up out of that, because if not, you won't find me there. You're not finding me there, period. And that's why I told you to come up out of that. So don't be so curious to go back to the things that God has called you from, and that you potentially end up hurting yourself in the midst of being curious about something that God has already spoke to you about. So have your eyes open to see what it is God is telling you to do. Have your ears open and listen to what it is that God is instructing you to do. And whatever he's telling you to do, be 100% founded in what he said, because it is true. Even if we don't see the things that God is telling us that it don't add up, don't go looking for what God said, because you don't want to find out why 100% God has pulled you from wherever he's pulled you from, because in the midst, you're going to get hurt looking for answers. Bye.